everybody. I am so excited. March is Women's History Month, and I am going to celebrate Elizabeth Freeman, who was from Massachusetts. She was also known as Mumbet, and this is her special story, Mumbet's Declaration of Independence. Let's get reading and find out what happened. Mumbet's Declaration of Independence by Gretchen Wolfley, illustrations by Alex Delanois. And these pages, free and independent, free, her heart fluttered. How could she secure her freedom? Mankind and a state of nature are equal. Let's find out. Mumbet didn't have a last name because she was a slave. She didn't even have an official first name. Folks called her Bet and Betty. Children fondly called her Mombet or Mumbet. Others weren't so kind. Colonel John Ashley was the richest man in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. He owned an iron mine, a forge, a sawmill, a gristmill, a general store, and 3,000 acres of farm and woodland. He also owned Mumbet. The colonel's wife, Mrs. Ashley, owned the sharpest tongue in town. All day she heard spiteful names at Mumbet. She called her useless baggage, stubborn wench, dumb creature. Don't mind her jabs, Lizzie, Mumbet said to her daughter. Look at that mountain out there. Rain and wind, ice and snow tried to wear it down, but there it stands strong and rugged, just like us. She stroked Lizzie's curls. What Mumbet did mind was someone owning her. Everyone in town worked hard, and many people worked on their own farms. Even servants and hired hands could choose to leave a cruel master, but Mumbet didn't have a choice. She was a servant for life. She gazed at the river running free at the bottom of the meadow. Freedom! She thought of it day and night. One day, Mumbet kneaded dough with Lizzie by her side. Glowing coals heated the oven. When it was hot enough, Mumbet shoveled out coals and put in the bread to bake. Lizzie formed her own little loaf from leftover scraps. Mrs. Ashley came in and screamed at Lizzie, Thief! How dare you steal my food? She raised her coal shovel to strike the girl, but Mumbet struck out her arm to take the blow. Crack! Blood sputtered from her arm. Lizzie shrieked, and Mrs. Ashley stared. Mumbet wrapped a rag around her wound until the bleeding stopped. All winter long the cut festered, but she never covered it. The wound was her badge of bravery. Folks asked, Why, Mumbet, what ails your arm? Ask Madam, she replied. Mrs. Ashley scowled. Mumbet's wound was her badge of shame. In the spring, Mumbet watched the river break free of ice and flood the meadow. If only she could break free. If only she could have 1 minute in her life just to say, I am free. Scrub that kettle, snapped Mrs. Ashley. Mumbet scrubbed and chuckled. Mrs. Ashley didn't know her river of thoughts. That ran through her Mumbet's head. Others were thinking about freedom too. Americans didn't like the laws and the taxes Britain forced on them. Town leaders met in Colonel Ashley's study. Take the men some food and drink, ordered Mrs. Ashley. Voices rang out as Mumbet entered the room. The king means to take away our rights, one man shouted. Do I have rights? Wondered Mumbet. He would make us slaves, cried another man. You wouldn't like that, not one bit, thought Mumbet. Colonel Ashley turned to a young lawyer with fire in his eyes. Write this down, Mr. Cedric. Mankind in a state of nature are equal, free, and independent. Mumbet set down her tray. Wasn't she part of mankind? The great end of society is to secure those rights wherewith God and nature have made us free. Free, her heart fluttered. How could she secure her freedom? The town held a parade when the American colonies declared their independence from Britain. The then local men marched off to war for 7 long years to keep hold of that independence. Thwack, thwack. Mumbet pounded flat sticks until the fiber came free. If she could have 1 minute of freedom, she would be willing to die at the end of that minute. Thwack! Just to stand 1 minute on this earth as a free woman. Thwack! Mumbet would be free, But how? The town held a meeting to learn about the Massachusetts Constitution, the new law of the land. Mumbet slipped into the back of the hall. She couldn't see over the crowd, but she heard well enough. All men are born free and equal. Mumbet wrinkled her brow. Was that law meant for her? The next day she picked up a shopping basket, but she walked past the stores. Mumbet stopped at the crossroads. Perhaps her plan would fail, and Mrs. Ashley would treat her worse than ever. She would take that chance. She would go to the young lawyer with the fire in his eyes, Mr. Theodore Sedgwick. Mumbet, what are you doing here? He asked. Right then she made her declaration of independence. I want to be free. I've got a right to be free. Mr. Sedgwick's eyebrows shot up. What gives you such a notion? The new Constitution says so. All people are born free and equal. Mumbet replied, I am not a dumb creature. I deserve my freedom. Mr. Sedgwick rubbed his chin. I don't know. You wrote those words at Colonel Ashley's house, she said. Do you believe them? Her blazing eyes met his. Of course, but that was not the law. The new Constitution is the law. Mumbet folded her arms. Yes, but he gazed at Mumbet standing strong as a mountain and pounded his desk. We'll go to court together and test the new law. But if we lose, I'll be no worse off, Mumbet said. And if we win, I will be free. A few days later, a loud knock sent Mumbet to the front door. Colonel Ashley, said the sheriff, holding out a paper. Colonel Ashley read it and exclaimed, Give up Mumbet. She's my property. You know that. You refuse? Asked the sheriff. Of course I do. Good day then, Colonel, said the sheriff. Mrs. Ashley slammed the door. Mumbet hid a smile. Her fight for freedom had begun. Mumbet and Mr. Sedgwick entered the courthouse on a hot August day. The room was crowded with their neighbors. Colonel Ashley argued that he had owned Mumbet for many years. She was his servant for life. Mr. Sedgwick argued that even though people owned slaves in Massachusetts, no law ever made it legal. Now the new Constitution made it illegal. Mumbet was not anyone's servant for life. The jury and the judge thought it over and agreed. Mumbet was free, and so was Lizzie. I suppose I'll have to pay you wages now, snapped Mrs. Ashley. No, you won't, said Mumbet. I'm quitting your house forever. Mumbet returned to the courthouse one more time to choose two names for herself. From that day on, she was Elizabeth Freeman, and for the rest of her long life, she lived free as a river and strong as a mountain. And this is the author's note about Mumbet. You can check this book out of the library and read it. She was supposed to live to the ripe old age of 85 years old. And Elizabeth Freeman, known by the name of Mumbet, she was a housekeeper, midwife, nurse, and second mother to Theodore Sedgwick's large family. When the Sedgwick children were grown, Mumbet lived out her days with her own daughter, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She was laid to rest in the Sedgwick burial plot in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, and her gravestone reads, Elizabeth Freeman, known by the name of Mumbet, died December 28, 1829. Her supposed age was 85 years. She was born a slave and remained a slave for nearly 30 years. She could neither read nor write, yet in her own sphere had no superior or equal. She neither wasted time nor property. She never violated a trust nor failed to perform a duty. In every situation of domestic trial, she was the most efficient helper and the tenderest friend. Good mother, farewell. And Mumbet, Elizabeth Freeman, was finally free. And that's the end of this amazing story. I hope you enjoyed this wonderful story about Elizabeth Freeman, otherwise known as Mumbet. And you can go and visit the Ashley House, which still stands in Berkshire County. And if you go there on August 21st, it's a celebration of Mumbet and her quest for freedom. I hope you enjoyed this story. Go back onto our calendar and find more stories about courageous women. Have a great day.